Hey guys, welcome back to Listen Bitch Presents Tell Me Why You're Special. This is the arena where we don't pretend life is fair. We talk about what it takes to stand when it's not. Because the truth is, some battles aren't quick. They drag on, they wear you down, they test you in most ways people will never understand. And systems, they don't always protect you, they don't always work the way they should. So you're left with a choice: break or build something stronger inside of you. And God doesn't waste that kind of pressure. He uses it to refine you, to strengthen you, to make you unshakable. So if you've ever felt like life just kept hitting you, this conversation is for you. Today's guest is Tammy Forster. She is a woman who went through over 100 court battles and came out stronger on the other side. So, Tammy, I launch everybody from the same starting point. Your elevator pitch. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what makes you special.
Well, as someone who's went through over 100 hearings, as you said, in a 10-year span, it was quite the battle. And through that, I'm an advocate to serve others because what I found in that system is that there wasn't anybody there for me. And so today I'm able to serve others through coaching to provide them with clarity, strategy, and confidence so that maybe it doesn't wear them so much down. And also to provide them with a financial strategy as well as a financial consultant as well. So that's what I do
Yeah.
today is to serve those and build them up and make them stronger through that adversity.
I love that. Over 100 court hearings. Okay, that is not normal. What are you going through in these moments?
You said it already. It'll wear you down. I mean,
Yeah,
that is what I saw going to the courthouse every time that you were called to do so. And of course, I was the defendant because it wasn't someone that would file and sue someone. But to see the lines of people waiting to be heard and to realize and look up statistics and realize you're really more like a herd of cattle being herded through the courthouse
yeah,
because they don't give you a lot of time. So there's no way to understand really what's going on in that case. They do the best they can. I'm not knocking the system itself, but I think the system's very broken in the way that the processes occur today because of that.
yeah. I mean, what's happening in your day to day life? Like, is this, I just, I can't imagine why anybody would be in court 100 times. That's so
Traffic
much.
going through
It's like a full time job.
100%.
Were
And
there,
the bad part it go and the bad part is it takes time away from your job. Like you just were starting to say, it takes time away from your job, from your
yeah,
family, from everything, and it starts to wear down. I lost my home twice.
wow.
I lost my jobs. I lost my hope because at one point I lost my kids for 8 months and I had to fight to get them back.
Yeah. And this is what you're fighting for. So you're fighting for your family, um, because losing all of these things, whatever you're fighting for, whatever your defense is, must have been pretty big.
Well, when you lose your kids and you
Yeah.
lose your home, you lose your job, what else is there, right?
Yeah.
And I think the real defining point for me was in really realizing I don't control all of these outside sources.
Yeah.
What I control is how I react.
Yeah.
And so I changed. And I remember the day exactly that I walked out of that courthouse. It didn't quite go the way I wanted it to. And I got on my knees and I prayed. And I said, Lord, I can't do it anymore. You do it.
Yeah.
And I realized something. I always wondered what peace meant. It was really a confusing term for me. But I knew that day because things didn't get easier.
Yeah.
They were still hard, but it was easier for me to walk through them because I had that peace that surpasses understanding. And it really was there. I didn't fall apart. I didn't break down. I was able to take those steps that I needed to take and move forward in that process. And I didn't just get my kids back. I got sole custody and we moved away. And I was able to protect my kids and pull them out of that. They were at that time 12 years old.
Wow.
So thankful for that I could be
Yeah.
able to do that. But in that process, I saw all these people going through the same things as me. And you go to these, like I say, self-help. Well, they're no help. They
No.
don't really help you. And legal aid. they take all your information and then they say, sorry, we can't give you any legal advice. And so you just
Exactly.
sit there and go, okay,
Yeah.
all my only resource is an attorney who wants a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to be that advocate and provide them a service at a far less price mark is huge,
Yeah.
just absolutely huge, because that money that they take from you, that's like the first point I think in knocking down that life system that you have
Yeah.
and breaking you down to the point where you just hit depression and anxiety and anger. There was a lot of anger.
Yeah.
And I realized I was in anger for a lot of time, I mean, good 2 years. And I finally realized what was that hurting? That was hurting me and my people I loved. It
Yeah.
didn't really affect the person that was causing it.
No.
So
In fact, I think
you
it
learn
gives
through
them
those processes.
satisfaction, right? They know they have you
Amen.
upset. And that's why I
I
tell
think
people,
that was
oh,
his goal.
yeah,
That
I
was his
never want
goal.
to give people power over me like that. That's why I'm always like quick to forget. I'm like, hey, you know, I'll figure this out on my own with God, but like you don't get that power to see me be upset. So
Right.
that
You take that deep breath, right? You take that deep breath, you breathe in and you go, nope, not today. I have a sweatshirt that
right.
says, nope, not
Yes.
today.
Rest
Right.
and
That
release.
that's part of my whole the acronym that I came up with that you see all over my stuff is I became the legal system warrior.
Yeah.
And one of my phrases is unbothered and unbreakable.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there were moments where you felt like breaking. Um and how, your come to Jesus moment, the time you end up on your knees, um how did that change those moments of breakdown? Because the pain still comes, right? You're still going through it. You're still in the arena, but kind of taking some of the weight off of you in that moment. How did that change like you mentally and those moments of breaking?
Faith over fear.
Yeah.
Faith over fear. Learning to pray instead of getting upset, learning to really go inside instead of letting these outside sources
Yeah.
become your demise. And I think that was massive for me and massive for my kids. I,
Yeah.
I think that's, I have a warrior success system that I provide to the parents, but I'm also in the process of creating a program called the Brave Anyway program for the parents to realize that the kids get impacted through that process. Don't let the kids get lost in that process because it's easy for us as parents
Yeah.
to literally forget how it's impacting our kids.
Yep.
And, it's not just for family court. That's what I went through. But I've been in other processes as well through that civil court. I lost my home to bed bugs and had a civil case as well throughout that same time period, crazy enough.
Yeah.
And it became a lot for me to watch that process and how broken it is to
Yeah.
serve those people as well that are just broken down. They don't understand. The processes are super confusing. They
Yeah.
don't give you the information you need. Come to me and allow me to move you in the right direction and give you that clarity and that confidence to not feel so devastated through those processes because there's no help within those systems.
Right. And I'm sure, like, I think it's incredible that you didn't lose yourself, but like, how many people, did you watch actually lose themselves in situations like that? Because there is that feeling of helpless, hopeless. There's nothing left. Okay, I'm against a system, and I can't imagine how much you watch that happen.
All the time. Well, in California courts, it was kind of interesting because you sit through everybody else's
Everybody's
hearings,
stuff.
which I think is crazy
Yeah.
because it's supposed to be private,
Mhm.
but yet you'll sit there waiting to be called and you're listening to everybody else's, let's say, dirty laundry.
Yeah.
How embarrassing
It
or
really
hurtful
is.
is that to those people and how insensitive of
It's
the
just
system
another
itself?
level of demeaning, and
Never left. Yep.
embarrassment, and it just, wow, let's stack it on. You know what
Let's
I
stack it
mean?
right. Let's
Wow.
make it even worse. And I
Right.
think you see that a lot because everybody goes in there thinking they're gonna plead their case and win. I had we were court ordered to a co-parenting class. This was hilarious
Yeah.
separately. And I thought, separately. How do we learn to
Interesting.
co-parent separately? They said, well, we don't want to put you in the same class because we don't want any altercations. I thought, okay, that's kind of ridiculous because you're defeating the purpose.
Yeah.
So we go into these classes and they're really like coping classes.
Yeah.
And this old attorney comes in. He was obviously retired.
Mhm.
He said, how many of you were told by your attorneys that you were going to win? And of course, almost everybody, right, raising their hand. He said, they're all lying to you.
Yep.
The only way you win, there's only two ways you win. One, don't go. Well, we're already there, right? Everybody's already
Yeah.
there. He says, but you are all already in the process. So the only way you're going to win is if you actually give something up and you compromise, meaning you walk out somewhat dissatisfied,
Yeah.
but you did that for your kids.
Yep.
And that really impacted me so much because truly it's about the kids,
Yeah.
especially in cases with kids. There's divorce cases. Typically, a divorce without kids is very simple. The ones that really get muddy are like mine, they get really convoluted with the kids.
Mhm.
And nobody wants to go through that.
No.
But you see it more and more and more today. People are very quick to sue, quick to not try to work it out.
Mhm.
We're just running to and the attorneys are just making money hand over fist.
Yeah, that's
$600 an hour, right?
yeah.
I'm like, who can afford that? So
Yeah. What does it mean? Tell me about your unbothered and unbreakable. What does that mean in real life?
in real life, unbothered and unbreakable obviously doesn't necessarily mean that things don't happen to you. Unbothered and unbreakable is exactly what you just said a little bit ago, in that you take a second, take a pause.
Yeah.
Don't allow the outside entities or the outside world to affect you in a way that really ultimately only affects you and the ones you love.
Yeah.
Because that gives you the power to be unbothered and unbreakable.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you don't break down. It doesn't mean you don't get bothered, but you learn techniques, which I provide in my system, to learn how to go inside and learn how to cope with that in a much healthier fashion.
Yeah. Where do you see people with the people that you're working with? Where are they giving their power away and they're not even realizing it?
They give their power away to the people that go after them and to the courts.
Yeah.
I think people believe, I did.
Yeah.
I absolutely believed in justice. I believed in the system. I believed everything was good. I came from a middle class family.
Yeah.
Everything was supposed to be the status quo.
Right.
We all pay taxes and this is supposed to be justice. And
Yeah.
literally on the building that I went to, the middle of the kiosk said justice. And I remember later on down the road thinking they need to take that out,
Yeah.
because of what I realized through that whole process was these systems are no longer for justice,
No.
they're for business.
But
They're
thank
just making
you.
money.
You said it. Oh my gosh, Tammy, you said it. Yeah, 100%. That's and who's the
And we
highest
need to
bidder?
change that.
We
And we
do.
need to change that. And I think
Yeah.
if ultimately if I could keep one family from going,
Yeah.
I win. They win. The
Absolutely.
system loses, and the
Yeah.
more power we take away from the system on the outside,
Yeah.
because you're not going to do it on the inside.
No.
They've set up systems where it's a
The system
machine,
protects itself.
of course,
Yeah.
and they all know each other.
Yes.
If you actually walk into a court with your attorney and they start to converse with the defense's attorney and the judge, and they're all laughing, and you realize this is just their job.
It's their job. Yeah.
They've internalized that you're not really people,
Yeah.
your paycheck.
Exactly. A number.
And that changes their perspective.
Yeah.
And a number, right? Like
Yep.
DMV,
Yeah.
wait your turn,
Yep.
right? And it's across the board. It's funny because even DMV or any
Mhm.
any state, local, whatever,
Yes.
they've been taught. And I'm not faulting them. These people that work in these processes have been taught
Yeah.
how to proceed.
Yep.
That's their job.
Yeah.
So you don't so you're not going to win trying to fight it from the inside.
No.
Somebody asked me, well, are you an advocate, like going into the courtroom? And that, no,
Mm-mm.
no. I want to teach you how to walk in on your own, standing tall, confident, and knowing how to be comfortable in doing that. I walked into court many times
Yep.
in that 10 years where I had to represent myself.
Yeah.
Many times. I've walked in with a broken leg
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
and had to represent myself. I walked in sick as a dog, flu, because they wouldn't change it
Yeah.
because I wasn't an attorney and I didn't have an
Exactly.
attorney. So you go in and you have to stand up and do these things. How do you do that?
Yeah.
And they don't want you to be emotional. You can't be emotional.
Well, they take the
You're supposed to
human
be
out of
business.
it.
It takes
Exactly.
the
Like
human out of it.
dehumanize everybody in all of these systems, and they've done that so well. And I understand it probably started, I would say, like, probably started as like you can't take on every case emotionally, right? You just can't. Like, what lawyer could actually be emotionally invested? So it's kind of like that separation, kind of how police can do their job, right? I
Yep.
I there's a part where you just kind of detach from that, and I think they've done it so well, that they've taught it so well, that there's you're just not a human anymore.
They're desensitized.
Yes.
You look at it in our kids today,
Yeah.
in the gaming that they play. I
Oh
have
my
in
lord,
my,
yeah.
I remember, right? I remember prior to, I won't say names of game systems,
Yeah.
certain systems coming out, most of those were nonviolent. All of a sudden,
Oh my gosh,
everything's a
Super
violent
Mario
game.
Brothers, that was so great.
Everything's a
Like,
violent game,
bring
but
back the
everything's a violent game
Nintendo.
now.
Yeah, now it's just
But it desensitizes these
yeah,
kids.
it does.
I'm gonna shoot you
Yeah.
just as normal.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
Right.
It's it, and it we've desensitized the system. We've desensitized our children,
Yep.
and we need to bring that back. And we need to realize really lifting each other up
Yeah.
and teaching everyone that it really comes from inside, not out here,
Yep.
is really where it's at.
Oh, I love this.
Learning,
Yeah.
learn, learning to speak up for yourself. I was not that person.
Yeah.
I was the middle of five. I am the middle of five kids.
Yeah.
I was the peacekeeper fixer.
Right.
I never got in trouble. I
Yep.
remember sitting with my friends, and my mom came to visit when I lived in Southern California, and my friends are talking about how they got in trouble as kids, da, 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 and
Yeah.
I said I never got in trouble as a kid, and my friends were like, "Yeah, right." And they asked my mom because she was sitting there. She went,
Yeah. Never
"She never
got
got in
in trouble.
trouble. Never
Yeah.
got in trouble." So for someone who just really kind of followed the status quo her whole life
Yeah.
to walk into these systems thinking this is supposed to work,
Yep.
it was shocking.
Yeah.
It changed me. And at some point, it changed me not in a good way. I got
Yeah.
very angry and I got very defensive and I got very dehumanized.
It's easy to fall into the victim status. So it's easy
Yep.
to be like all of a sudden like you're a victim, and I think that's another scary place that these people are getting stuck.
I had a little bit of grounding growing up though, because my
Yeah.
mom, we were raised to have our beliefs, and I was very strong in that as a kid. I was not the kid that got invited to parties because I would probably tell on you for
Tell
doing
on
something you weren't
everybody.
supposed to do,
I
right?
love it.
So I
Yeah.
just wasn't that person.
Yeah.
And I took that into adulthood with me, and I didn't necessarily follow that throughout my life. And I made some poor decisions, which certainly I'm not going to sit there and say that this all happened to me and I didn't make bad choices. I did.
Oh, of
I
course.
made some very poor
Yeah.
choices in the people in my life. That's my fault. But I
Yeah.
can own that and say, hey, you know what? I own that I made mistakes, but I'm
Yeah.
taking back my life. I'm taking back the control of how I react to what happens on the outside
Yeah.
and not let it impact my life the way that it used to.
Yeah.
And it's changed. I'm real happy with this situation today because my
Yes.
kids who went through all that with me, and it was devastating. There was a time when there were a lot of really bad things happening in my life in front of them,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how to control it. I just didn't know how to control it. It was out of control. It was hurtful. But today, those kids, man, my twins, they're 20.
Yeah.
One is going to college. He hated high school, so I'm shocked that he's going to college,
Yeah,
but I'm
that's
so proud of him.
yeah.
And my other son takes care of autistic kids. He's amazing. He's a great
Good job,
caregiver.
mama. Good job.
And my daughter, she's an MA. She's going for her nursing license. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm proud of him, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful that we were protected through all of that to where they could become functioning, productive
Yeah.
adults and didn't fall into that trap. And it hurts my heart.
Yeah.
And it's why I'm doing what I'm doing
Yeah.
to try to serve other people and not falling into that trap.
Of course. I love that. And I think, you know, you get a lot of credit for that because the mom that shuts down and that becomes the victim in that situation, her kids don't get that bounce back. And it's because of what they're seeing her do and the fact that you came out of this and you grew from it, you learned from it, like you became this incredible voice for that. I mean, the kids
Girl,
had no other choice but to move forward, you know?
when they were removed from me,
Yeah.
the day that they were taken,
Yeah.
my one son was at childcare because I was at the we lived in the mountains up at the time.
Okay.
And so the hospital also was the doctor's office. It was
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
And so I was at the doctor's office with my son because about 4 weeks prior, he'd broken his finger. They were playing on the playground and he broke his finger. So he had a cast on because he was very small. And we went back for a checkup. So my
Yeah.
other son was at childcare.
Yeah.
And I get a call. And when I moved away initially from where I was, and I moved
Yeah.
7 miles, 70 miles away, their dad started calling CPS, 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 CPS. So I had a
Oh.
lot of CPS coming at me and cleared all the time, all the time.
Yeah.
But they still came, right? Every
Yep.
call, every call. And so I got a call from the CPS worker that I just met a week ago.
Yeah.
Came into home, everything was fine. She says, "Hey, I need to come see you." I said, "Okay, I'm not home." She says, "I know." I said, "What do
Okay.
you mean, you know?" She says,
Yeah.
"Well, I have your son." She had picked up my son from childcare.
Oh my gosh.
Don't know this person.
Yeah.
Shows up at the hospital with the sheriff
Mm.
saying she's taking my other son as well. Now, it was funny because I'd seen this officer that was with her many times,
Yeah.
right? Come into my house at the schools because of all these phone calls. And he said to me, because I was upset, obviously, who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
He said, "I've never seen you like this." I said, "Nobody's ever taken my kids. That's a
Exactly.
ridiculous statement."
Yeah.
And I stood in front of her and I said, "You're wrong about me.
Yeah.
And when I prove it, I'm going to prove it."
Yep.
And she said, "If you don't step away, I'm not going to let you say goodbye to your kids."
Oh.
That was devastating. So I hugged my son and I stepped back and they drove away. And I hate for anything like that to ever happen to anybody
Yeah.
because I know what it felt like.
Yeah. I could not imagine.
And it was real, but I've always known God.
Yeah.
And I really went inward
Yeah.
and I really focused on how do I get him back?
Yep.
And I remember another guy, there was a podcast. It was a whole CPS back before podcasts were big.
Yeah.
This guy was on a podcast talking about CPS. And he said something that really resonated with me too. He said, "Do you want to be right or do you want to or do you want to get your
Get your
kids back?" And
kids
I
back.
went, "Ah, right." I'm
Dang
like,
it.
"I want to give my kids back." Okay, so
Yeah.
follow the process. Do what they want you to do.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yep.
It's wrong,
Yep.
but the process is set up where internally they've set it up where the people that run those processes,
Mhm.
they're also people that went through it. So
Yep.
they don't, if you're someone that isn't that person, they don't believe you.
Yep.
So you just have to roll with the punches, man.
Oh.
You know, get yourself
Yeah.
through it and keep going. I remember another time sitting with my son at a CPS monitored visit.
Yeah.
And he said, "Mom, when are we going home?"
Oh.
I said, "I don't know, son, but I'm going to get you there."
Yep.
That was my
That's
goal.
yeah.
And to have that kind of a goal puts a fire under you for sure,
Yeah.
you know, you know, again, for anybody going through that, I
Yep.
would love people to reach out to me and work through that
Yeah.
and give them the tools to stand up
Yep.
and not let the system beat them down
And
because
just even
they're just doing their
yeah.
job.
Right. And I think it's incredible because I know there's that place where you're going to let them know that they are human and that their story matters and they're not just a number. I think that's incredible. Um, you know, how can people get resourced with you? Where can they find you?
I am, I do have a website, www.freegiftsfromthelegalsystemwarrior.com. I also can be, you can find me all over Facebook. I'm on
Okay.
Facebook under Tammy Forster. I'm plastered all over there. You can certainly DM me at my phone number. You can call me direct. My number is 626-833-5069. I would want to be personally connected with whoever's talking to me because I know how hard it is.
What would you say to that one person right now? Someone's listening who just feels completely stuck in the system and they can't get out. What do you want to say to them right now?
Don't allow the system to make you bothered and breakable. Be unbothered and unbreakable.
I love that. Tammy, this is the part of the show where I get to tell you what I think makes you special. And it's not just that you survived it, it's that you didn't stay in it. You went through something most people don't ever recover from. And instead of staying stuck, you turned it into strength. You built something out of it. And now you're showing other people the way. They don't have to stay powerless. I think it's beautiful. I think what you're doing is amazing. I think God called you to this. And as unfortunate is that you had to go through everything you did to get here, he had a mission for you. And I think that you are the definition of resilience. I think you encompass leadership, and I think that's what makes you special. To everyone listening, you guys, life isn't always fair, but you still get to decide who you become when you go through it. God did not bring you this far to let something break you. You are stronger than you think, and you are more capable than you've been acting, and you can rise no matter what you're facing. And now you have an opportunity to not have to do it alone. So please reach out to Tammy. Remember that your mess is your message. Even the battles, even the systems that worked against you, even the seasons where you felt powerless, that is where your strength is built. Okay. Um, Make sure you guys share the show out. You know someone that is probably in it and going through it that Tammy wouldn't have access to. So if you share this show, it's a very unselfish thing. This might help someone get back to the place where they can have the strength to fight. It really just takes one person to stand up with you. So help Tammy connect to the people that she can help. Okay. And if you guys are ready for the hot seat, come tell me why you're special. Tammy, your story is amazing. You're amazing. I love the legal system warrior. You're doing it, babe. I love it.